More now on our top story, the leadership transition at Temasek Holdings. CEO Ching is retiring to be succeeded by Dilhan Pillay Sandrasegara, the current head of the group's investment arm. And for a closer look at the change, we're joined by Associate Professor Eugene Tan from the Singapore Management University. He was also formerly a nominated Member of Parliament. Good evening, Professor Tan. How significant is this leadership renewal and why is it happening now?
Good evening, Dawn. I think the leadership change is a very significant one. We are looking at Temasek's first CEO change in 17 years. It has been a relatively long search, for a new leader by Temasek's board, and they've settled an internal candidate. But it hasn't been all that smooth sailing. I think we will all recall that in 2009, Charles Goodyear, who was then the CEO designate at Temasek Holdings, abruptly pulled out, resigned from the company barely 6 months after accepting the position to be the CEO. So I think it's a long time in the making, but the fact that Temasek is proceeding with this leadership change amid the global pandemic, suggests that there is a high level of confidence that a leadership change is not going to upset people's expectations, that people will know, stakeholders will know that a company is proceeding as it has always been, and that there will be continuity as well as change. So I think overall, it is a hugely significant announcement, and I think all eyes will now be on the incoming new chief executive officer.
Given the tumultuous times we're in and the pandemic, how would you define Temasek's role, and what will the expectations be of the new leader?
I think in terms of expectations of Temasek as well as its new leader, I don't think they are going to change, right? The expectations will continue to remain high. These expectations are legitimate and they will persist. I mean, it is a hot seat. We're looking at a very key Singapore institution. It may be a private company, but it's wholly owned by the Minister of Finance, and it manages substantial investments and assets on behalf of the Singapore government. So we are looking in excess of 300 billion in terms of investment and assets, as at March 2020. So when you look at what is at stake, certainly the expectations are there. And we must also remember Temasek's significance is not just a private company, but in terms of its role, it has the constitutional status as a fifth scheduled company under the Singapore Constitution. And what do we mean by that? It means that the president has veto powers with regard to board appointments, as well as the use of Temasek's past reserves. So I think when you look at the significant role that Temasek plays within the corporate landscape, as well as within the constitutional scene, I think the expectations will continue to be high, and it will remain a hot seat.
The position is indeed a hot seat, Professor Tan. What are the immediate challenges that Mr. Pillay is going to have to tackle?
I think certainly, he will have to ensure that there's continuity amid the changes. So whether it's internal changes or the external global environment, that's certainly the task that Mr. Dilhan would have. But if we go down to the specifics, it means ensuring that Temasek's portfolio of investments, its companies, remain resilient. And that is a task that in many ways have been made a lot more challenging as a result of COVID-19. And in many ways, when you look at the increased nationalism around the world, the increased protectionism, as well as global tensions, these will create significant uncertainties in the short, to perhaps even the long term. And we mustn't forget that China and the United States, and the tensions between these two powers, these are also the two countries in which Temasek has significant investment in. So I think when you look at the task of ensuring a resilient portfolio, that also means having to work together with these companies to position them for the future. And I think that also means, being able to invest in new opportunities that have arisen as a result of what we're seeing today, whether it's COVID-19, the recovery, whether it's the geopolitical situation, and being able to look into what are new investment opportunities, not just for the moment, right, but certainly for the long term. So whether it's digitalization, that's one, healthcare would be another. But I think if we can sum up the challenges, I think that really means the new CEO will have to ensure that Temasek remains a company that Singapore and Singaporeans are proud of.
Professor Tan, thank you for your perspectives on this development at Temasek Holdings. That was Professor Eugene Tan from the School of Law at SMU.